It is the most successful invasion in human history. It requires no boots on the ground, no kinetic bombardment, and no declaration of war. Yet as you sit here, it is breaching your borders, devaluing your labor, and rewriting the sovereignty of your central bank. For the global G7 elite, the illusion of a free market is a necessary ghost, but for the strategist, the reality is far more predatory. We are witnessing the weaponization of the Greenback, a calculated maneuver of fiscal leverage that treats every other currency not as a peer but as a casualty. Imagine a world where you do everything right. Your nation's GDP is stable, your exports are high, yet overnight your purchasing power evaporates, your energy costs double, your national debt becomes an unpayable mountain, not because of your failures, but because of a decision made in a windowless room in Washington. This is the dollar smash, and you are the target. On the macro-chessboard, interest rates are no longer economic tools, they are long-range artillery. When the Federal Reserve raises rates, it isn't just fighting domestic inflation, it is engaging in a form of financial brinksmanship. By tightening the supply of the world's primary reserve currency, the US creates a vacuum. It forces country A to cannibalize its own reserves to protect its exchange rate, while country B is forced into a high-interest death spiral just to keep its investors from fleeing. It is an asymmetric war where the US exports its inflation and imports the world's wealth. To understand the invasion, you must understand the weapon, liquidity. In the theater of global trade, the US dollar is the oxygen. 80% of all international transactions are settled in greenbacks. This is the ultimate weapon of mass destruction. Through the hegemony of the SWIFT system and the eurodollar market, the United States maintains a digital panopticon. If you are disconnected from the dollar, your economy doesn't just slow down, it suffocates. This isn't just trade, it's weaponized interdependence. But here is the revelation that the headlines miss. The most terrifying part of the dollar's invasion isn't that it's forced upon us. The world is not a victim of the dollar. It is a hostage to its own safety. Every nation on Earth, including China, including the EU, has hedged their future on the stability of the very currency that is currently devaluing them. To destroy the invader is to commit national suicide. We are not witnessing an economic cycle. We are witnessing the final architecture of a financial empire that has no exit strategy. For decades, the whispers of de-dollarization have echoed through the corridors of power in the East. We are told of a coming multipolar world, a rebellion against the green hegemony. But in the theater of geopolitical reality, these are not movements of liberation, they are gestures of desperation. The counterinsurgency led by the BRICS nations is often framed as a strategic pivot, yet it faces a fundamental paradox of trust. To replace the dollar, one must provide a sanctuary of transparency and liquid depth that no autocratic regime can fundamentally offer. You cannot build a global reserve on the shifting sands of capital controls and opaque governance. While the world's challengers hoard gold or experiment with digital ledgers, they forget one crucial axiom. In a global crisis, the world does not look for a fair currency. It looks for a liquid one. When the storm hits, the G7 doesn't flee to the yuan. It retreats into the safety of the very invader it claims to despise. The invasion is now entering its digital phase. The rise of central bank digital currencies, or CBDCs, is not merely a technological upgrade, it is the construction of a fiscal panopticon. If the physical dollar was the infantry, the digital dollar is the satellite surveillance. By integrating the dollar directly into the programmable fabric of global trade, the United States is ensuring that its invasion becomes invisible. It will no longer be a currency you hold, but a protocol you must use, a set of rules from which there is no physical or digital escape. We are not entering a post-dollar era. We are entering the era of the total dollar, a world where the invasion is complete and the border between domestic and global finance has been permanently erased. The question is no longer how to stop the invasion. The question is, in a world defined by the Greenback, what happens to the nations that can no longer pay the toll? This is the geometry of power. This is the invasion of the invisible. Within the G7, the language is one of cooperation and aligned interests. But beneath the diplomatic veneer lies a more clinical reality, asymmetric dependency. The invasion didn't stop at the borders of the East. It successfully colonized the West first. This is the liquidity umbilical. In times of crisis, the world's most powerful central banks do not rely on their own reserves. They rely on swap lines provided by the Fed. This is the ultimate tool of suzerainty. To be an ally is to be granted the privilege of borrowing the dollar. To be an enemy is to be denied the right to exist in the global market. For London, Paris, and Tokyo, the price of admission to the global financial elite is the surrender of true fiscal autonomy. You may print your own currency, but you must govern by the dollar's rules. The invasion is so total that the occupied have forgotten they were ever invaded. We must stop viewing the dollar as a currency. It is a global operating system. And like any OS, once the world's infrastructure is built upon it, the cost of switching is greater than the cost of submission. The invasion is over. The occupation is permanent. Every transaction you make, every debt you carry, and every dream you fund is a line of code written in a language owned by Washington. In the history of empires, the greatest have always been those that didn't need to plant a flag. They simply became the air that everyone else had to breathe. The US dollar didn't just invade the world, it became the world. And in the kingdom of the blind, the one who controls the currency is king.